predict disasters or emergencies, but we can plan ahead. And sometimes that's half the battle. So, like I said, while there's no way to prevent any sort of an emergency or disaster, whether it be a personal emergency, this doesn't have to be a huge wildfire. Your house doesn't necessarily even have to be on fire. Maybe you get sick and have to go to the hospital. Anything related to leaving your home for an extended amount of time and being prepared in any sort of emergency for your pets is important to have that plan in place.
Yes, absolutely. And a great first step for preparedness, pet, human, whatever it may be, preparing your home, is understanding the hazards that are most common in your area. So here in Queen Anne's County, flooding, significant issue here, especially if you live southern part of the county. Stevensville, Graysonville, Chester, Queenstown, flooding is a significant concern. We are threatened by hurricanes. We can have severe weather. We had the tornado in Bay City in 2017. So there's all kinds of different hazards that we see here kind of on that yearly basis. Every year we at least hear about them a couple of times throughout the year. But also, you know, what if there was a car accident and there is a hazardous material that was involved? And now we're talking about having to evacuate our homes in a short period of time. So there's other situations, not just natural hazards where it's like, okay, I know there's a thunderstorm coming, or I know there's a hurricane that's churning out there in the Gulf and might impact me in a couple of days. But there's those immediate situations of, oh no, I only have so much time. What do I need? And if you can do all of that thinking and pre-work on a blue sky day like today, you're not having to worry about that in that moment. God forbid it happens. You can grab what you need and you know everything is already there. And so taking all of that footwork out is also going to give you peace of mind. It's going to help you keep your sanity a little bit more, because that's a really stressful situation to be in. We're having to leave a place that is safe. It's our home base. That is where we are. That's where our memories are. That's where our life is. And having to uproot for our safety, not only do we need to think about the people that are with us, especially if you have medication that needs to be with you. Maybe there's a person that you're caring for as well in the home, but your pets as well. Your pets are just as much part of the family. And so making sure that you have all of that guesswork out of the way ahead of time is really going to help you in that moment.
So some of what we'll be reviewing today, we'll be talking about emergency contacts, what information you should have at hand that's relevant and important in times of emergency. We've even come up with a little list up at the handout table that has blank spaces for you to fill in your own, especially like your animals. Do they have medications? Do they have any allergies? And then that contact person that you're gonna want to make the central person, and they should know that they're that person, and they should know what their responsibilities are included, and so should your entire family. So we've provided that for you up there as well. We'll also be talking about the importance of vaccine records and why that's so important to keep in an easy to locate spot and updated, as well as proper pet identification. What items are essential? I know that's been a lot of questions for today. We've even prepared a little kit of examples for both cat and dog. There are, of course, other pets out there besides cats and dogs, and I realize this. However, I don't have all of those kits prepared. However, we're going to provide you with the resources of where to go for other websites that will have that provided. And then lastly, we'll be available to answer any questions. Before we begin, we wanted to do a show of hands quiz just to get a baseline of how ready we are at this point. So a first question being, how many of your pets at home right now are microchipped? Nice. All right.
That's totally fine though. Microchipping has become, it's newer. So if you have older pets, maybe, you know, when you got them, that wasn't a service that was available, but it's super easy to get your pet microchipped. There's some information here. Queen Anne's County Animal Services does offer microchipping. I know Talbot Humane offers it. Caroline County Humane offers it. Baywater down in Dorchester County, they offer it. There are a bunch of services that offer that, as well as your vet. So there are clinics that happen throughout the year. You can set an appointment with your local animal shelter in this area that's really big here, and it's lower cost. But there are those resources available. So if you haven't had a pet microchipped, it's totally fine, but it's something that really helps with the reunification of a pet and their owner. And even if the dog gets out, just bumps that screen door, maybe the cat gets spooked and goes out when you're trying to bring groceries in. It happens. Life happens, those kinds of things. But when a pet is found, that is the very first thing that is done. When it's brought to any kind of shelter, they are scanned for that microchip. And both of us, working in some sort of shelter setting through many, many years of our lives, can attest to the reunification that happens just because of that microchip and having that information updated.
It's useless if you don't keep the information updated.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
I really appreciate you saying that,
Yes.
because we do get a lot of animals at the shelter that are brought there with a microchip that's not attached to anyone. So doesn't really help us in that scenario. So it's very crucial that that be done. And for those that don't have their pets microchipped yet, just to plug in Queen Anne's County Animal Services, it is $15 per pet, which if you do comparison shopping is a very good deal.
Is that a one-time $15?
Correct.
Because the commercial ones are very expensive.
So there are options that every company will ask you if you want insurance, or they'll pose these like yearly fees on you, but you don't have to opt for that. Just ignore it. It's not needed. That microchip is good for a lifetime. However, we always recommend when you bring your pets in for their yearly exam, have your vet make sure to check for that microchip every time, because they can relocate, they can fall out occasionally. Now that's a rare occasion. However, like I said, I do highly suggest that that be done, just because, like I said, they can move. They're about the size of a grain of rice, and that can move around in the animal. So we want to make sure that that's still properly implanted. You want to ask the next question?
Sure.
Or wait.
How many of your pets are registered in this county or the county in which you reside? Because I know we don't have all Queen Anne's County residents here. So, give or take. So the requirements are different from county to county. So I'm going to let Sarah talk about the requirements for Queen Anne's, and then I can speak to some requirements for other counties.
Yeah, so in Queen Anne's County, you will need a microchip and a current rabies vaccination. I've actually provided the forms that need to be completed for Queen Anne's County. You can fill it out, bring it back to our shelter. It's $11 per pet, and again, that's good for a lifetime. And it is a requirement of every cat, dog, and ferret within the county as pets that need to be registered.
Now, for those that don't live in Queen Anne's County, or maybe you have another property elsewhere in which you visit frequently, or you have a second residence, it's important to look at the requirements of that county for your pet as well. Because if your pet was to get lost while you were visiting that location, it would be important to have that information on file with that county. I know that in a lot of our surrounding counties here, there is no requirement for a cat to be registered. And that's because a lot of folks have outdoor working cats, barn cats. And in that case, trying to wrestle them in for all these appointments, it might be a little bit more difficult. And so those counties recognize that kind of population that they have. And so there's no requirement for cats. Some of them have requirements for other domestic animals. It's research that you should do. It's very easy to find. So just go on to their website, maybe they have a Facebook, or give them a call and say, hey, what are the requirements for this county? I know in the county that I live in, it is a dog-only requirement. And so that is just something to keep in mind if you're not a resident of Queen Anne's County, if you're visiting long-term a different area, or if you're planning to make any moves.
Right, and the benefits of the registration, again, should your animal get lost, there's one less step in getting them back. So animal control should be able to scan, check for that registration right at the site, and return your animal to your home rather than you having to come back to the shelter to pick it up. So, go ahead.
I think mine were registered when I first got them, but it was before it was an annual, or I mean, it was annual, wasn't the lifetime. Is there a way I can check online, or should I go to animal control?
Actually, you would go to us for that information. We can easily check for you. Just give us your information and we'll make sure you're all up to date. And like I said, it is good for a lifetime. However, whenever you get that new rabies vaccine on board, make sure to call and we'll update that for you.
Say the rabies changes.
Exactly.
Years
No.
ago, wouldn't have.
Yeah, so that does need to be in our system as it updates.
Our vets don't do that.
Vets do not do that, no. We will handle that, and you have to come directly to us for that. And it doesn't take much, just take a picture of the thing and email it to us, the certificate. You don't even have to come in. You can, like I said, upload it and send it to us, and it's not an additional cost. So every time you get that rabies vaccination, make sure to give us that information so we can get that updated for you. Keep your registration current. All right. Are your pets current on their vaccines? How many? Yeah. Awesome. Follow up to that, however, tricky question. How often do you get your pets vaccinated? Yes.
I get them vaccinated every time their vaccines are due.
That's what I do too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But just wanted to reiterate that point of making sure they're current and that this is not good, once and done kind of thing. So, moving on.
This is super important. Do you have pictures of your pet on your phone? With you included in the picture. Yes.
More than my kids.
Yes.
How many of you have a selfie of you with your pet? Nice. Awesome. And that's also really important. We'll go into that more later, but being able to prove that you're the owner, those pictures do go a long way. I know, especially since there's a lot of, when people are picking up animals, there can be a lot of he said, she said, this is my pet, but that does go a long way in helping us prove. So,
Are you able to locate your pet's rabies vaccination as well as veterinary records very, very easily in your home?
yes. All right. I love seeing the hands up for that one.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a file with a picture of each dog, he's got a folder.
I love
that.
it. Do you have a collar for your pets at home? Yeah? Awesome.
So in our home, it's a little different. We have cats. I have one cat that will wear a collar. The other ones, absolutely not.
I suggest having the collar regardless of whether they may not wear it, but you can attach it maybe to the carrier and have that identification tag on it, which is also the important part of the follow-up of that is do your pet's collars have the identification to find you, listing your phone number, your pet's name, your name? Perfect. Great. And then, like I said, even if they don't wear that, put it on their traveling tag or somewhere where like their carrier or something that you can find. Yes.
So when an animal's panicked and you're moving it from place to place, which type of collar would you personally recommend for having in your go kit?
For cats, absolutely the breakaways. And for dogs, a nice sturdy one that it is like the clip-on kind, not so much the buckle one. You want to be able to easily get that on and off. But we'll go into that more later because it's there's a lot to especially for dogs. You don't want to rely just on the collar and the leash. We'll go into that more later, but yeah, especially for cats, you want to use that breakaway. Should they snag on something, you want them to be able to get that off easily.
Does every cat in your home have its own carrier? Or if you have dogs, does every dog have its own kennel?
Nice.
Yes. Yes.
And lastly, does anyone here have anything ready to go in case of emergencies already?
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, for the rest of you, I'm glad you're here because that's the point of the class. And we'll go over all that information with you today. Oh, do you want to go back one? We'll do this already. Okay.
So, knowing who to contact and when, super important. Make sure that you have the number for your vet written somewhere on your documentation that you're able to grab and go. Or if you have used multiple vets, making sure that you have their contact information. Knowing how to get a hold of emergency veterinary care, knowing what's available in your area is also super important. But even if you're having to relocate and you're having to, let a neighbor know, hey, I'm on the other side of the bridge, there was an accident, I'm not going to be able to get home tonight, I'm stuck on this side, can you go and take the dog out for me?
Just happened in Mayo Peninsula with
Yes.
that gas leak, just.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So situations like that, do you have someone nearby that you trust that could go and take care of your pet in the event that you're not able to get home? Sarah mentioned having an unexpected hospitalization. Maybe there's a family emergency. Having somebody else that you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, I need your help. Making sure that you have the contact information for that individual and you have that discussion with them ahead of time is also going to be super helpful.
Correct. And like going back to that emergency contact list that we've created for you, it's up front to grab as many as you like. You can put your name on it. It has poison control for Maryland, the pet number for that. 2 different pet emergency vet clinics. One is in Annapolis. It's called AVAC, or Anne Arundel Veterinary Emergency Care. The other one is in Delaware. There's not a lot of 24-hour pet emergency cares near us, so those 2 are the primary ones. We also have animal control. They'd be who you'd want to contact if your pet goes missing. You can also contact the shelter. And then it has space for your pet's information, like we talked about, your pet's names, allergies, and that contact person of the list of trusted people. And like Shay mentioned, make sure they know that they're that person for you prior to assigning them. Yes, and that they have a key or a way to get into your house and kind of know your pet's routines. If not, you can use the back to put little instructions on there for them.
Just a heads up, if some people might not know about the animal poison control number, I had to call them once, and they do charge you at that point $75.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
Oh, I still want to include it though because there are times where you just need to do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. They do charge a fee. But if anyone wants to grab any of that, I also have information on microchipping up there as well. But the importance of vaccines. So a lot of people think my dog's friendly, it doesn't bite. My cat doesn't leave the house. It doesn't need a rabies. Well, they do. I was one of those people prior to long time ago before realizing this information. So I was to blame for some of this problem as well. But learning as much as I did now, I realized how important that is. You can't get into a boarding facility, emergency shelters, and I know in crisis times we'll provide that on the scene. But it's so much easier for you to get into these places if you already have all this information and have it somewhere. We keep ours now in a fire safe box just in case. But you can keep them in a folder. I like to keep them in those like plastic little page dividers should it be raining or get wet. But keep them safe. Keep them up to date like we talked about and keep them easy to locate. Just, main one is that rabies, just make sure it's on board. We might know our pets are friendly, but the emergency responder that comes to your house or that is saving your animals, they might not. And so when they're either providing emergency medical care for your animal or what have you, that's the first thing they're gonna ask. It just makes things a lot smoother if you have that ready.
And to continue on that topic, we mentioned earlier the emergency sheltering and what that would look like. So for Queen Anne's County, Sarah just mentioned, if there was a vaccine that was not up to date, it would be administered at the site of the shelter. Know that with sheltering, they're going to ask for that information if you're bringing your pet with you. You may not be able to stay with your pet in that shelter, depending on how it is set up. There are requirements because of allergies, because of safety concerns, where pets may have to be in a different part of that facility, so isolated away from where most of the folks are staying, even though the owner is still able to go back and forth.
Right.
But there's going to be some form of separation, and you also don't know what other animals are going to be present. And if another animal might happen to be sick and maybe isn't showing symptoms. We also see that stress can also cause illness in a lot of animals. And so it's just that added level of protection of making sure that those vaccinations are up to date to prevent the spread of disease as much as you possibly can, because it is a stressful environment, right? They're not on the sofa, even though we tell them they're not supposed to be on the sofa, they're still on the sofa. It's not your bed, it's not the really soft fuzzy blanket that is completely theirs and you're not ever gonna touch it because it's theirs.
Or your fresh pile of laundry.
Yeah, it's a stressful environment. They have gone from the world is their oyster in their house, because it really is their house, we're just paying the mortgage, to a carrier or to a kennel. And it's loud and there's unfamiliar people.
Sense and
Yeah, so it's a lot of sensory, but just the spread of illness is possible in a shelter environment just because of the stress that comes with it. And so making sure that those vaccines are up to date ahead of time already gives them a head start in staying healthy throughout that situation. And being able to go up when you do your shelter registration, it's a stressful time. You have a lot of people that are coming and seeking refuge. Being able to just say, here's my documentation, and that's it. It's a load of stress off of you. It's a load of stress off of the people working at that shelter.
And just to add a little bit to that, I know there was a question on where to go. So I can't speak for other counties, but in Queen Anne's County, Centerville Middle School
Is the pre-designated.
is the pre-designated emergency shelter that will take place. And I know this because we're getting ready to train for such an event soon. So Shay and I will have another chance to work together again, and we'll actually set up kennels in practice with people that are volunteering to help us with their pets, and we'll make it sure that everything runs smoothly prior to an event. Yes?
In the event we have to shelter at the school, would there be kennels there for dogs, or would we have to bring our own?
We would have those supplied. However, it would never hurt to have one on hand. It depends on how much time you have to evacuate and if you can easily get that out. If not, we have a large supply, and we'll be providing that because there'll be a lot of people that won't have that with them.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
I can speak from experience with emergency sheltering. You just like if you were going to seek shelter yourself, you want to bring your stuff with you. You're not going to the 5-star Hyatt.
Right.
So if you're able to have those supplies with you, you're lessening the burden on that shelter and being able to provide those supplies. If you have a pet that maybe they're not fond of their crate and you've got one of those really super tough crates, that is not going to be what shows up at the shelter with our employees. It's going to be the basic pop-up kennels. So if you already know that in advance, please make every effort to bring that with you, because that is going to be super helpful, not only for the shelter staff, keeping everybody safe, but also for the safety of your pet.
And as Shay, just to back on what she was saying, you will not be sleeping in the same room as your animals in this sort of scenario. However, you will be visiting them during the day. It will still be your responsibility to come in and care and walk your dog, or spend time with your cat. So have these supplies that we're going to talk about already in place. And it's not a bad idea to even keep it in your trunk. Go ahead.
Where is Centerville Middle School located?
It is located on Ruthsburg Road. So if you're familiar where the Acme is in Centerville, it is right next door. You've got the high school and then there's the middle school. Yeah.
All right. Proper pet identification. Again, we talked about microchipping. I know the majority of you have microchipped your pets. A lot of people are a little bit hesitant to get the microchip. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "This is Big Brother watching me." I promise you, they're not. They won't locate your pet, so they're not trackers. But should the person, the good citizen, or animal control find your pet out where it shouldn't be, that'll tell us it's yours. So really important to have that. If you want to go into the photos.
Yes, once again, make sure that you have the pictures of your pet on your phone. That's also really helpful for if your pet gets lost. And it's like, well, do you have an up-to-date picture of your pet? Oh, I haven't taken a picture with my dog in like 3 or 4 years, and it was a puppy and now it's a full grown. So there's that discrepancy there, and it's like, well, what does your pet look like? Maybe they have a skin condition where someone's going to be like, oh my gosh, there's this awful thing. No, that's a medical condition that we've been addressing for several years. I've got the documentation for it. It's not mange.
Right.
So being able to just have that picture of your pet is going to be super helpful for the reunification process, but also to help explain, if there is a skin condition, which we see all the time.
Right. No, they've always had this. So.
Yeah. So really, really helpful to just have that picture because we're able to put that on social media. And now not only do you have animal control looking for the animal, you have your entire community.
Right.
And if you can imagine with the Los Angeles fires,
Yes.
what those stray pets look like when they were recovered. So.
Yes.
what-
You might as well just take a shot of your vaccine.
Absolutely.
Record.
Yeah.
Send it up to the cloud, so. if
Yeah,
you
we
just-
highly suggest that as well. Should you lose that paper copy, always take a picture of that. Exactly. And following that, again, talking about registering that pet, they're gonna know in that emergency setting that it's not gonna be their primary focus, but it is a county requirement, so just make sure that they are registered and up to date. And again, the tags. I know not every cat is going to want to wear a tag and a collar, but again, maybe attaching it to their carrier safely when you bring them in so that people are aware. And then that collar can easily go on their crate, so again, double protection and identification purposes. All right.
I think we get into our bins now.
Yes. So, we're going to start in what to have ready and going through some of these bins. But I also wanted to let you know there's a lot of trusted sources out there, and we've provided you with the QR codes for some of them in your packets, as well as there is a checklist up front that Shane put together. So definitely take a look at that as well. But you can also go to your basic like Red Cross, FEMA, ASPCA websites to find this information as well. But starting off, the list of must-haves, and I mean it's pretty similar for dog and cat, but I've just put together. Should we go through the checklist and then do it again?
I think we should just go straight into this.
All right, let's do it. So, I did not have random microchips assigned to someone, so I just brought the general copy of what ours would look like. We use 24 Pet Watch, and yours is not going to come with the needle that is put into the animal, but it will come with these stickers, and that is the number that you're going to want to keep. And it's nice, you have quite a few stickers in this packet. You can put it on the registration form just to easily enough keep it there. Keep one with you. There's also a tag provided. The pet should be wearing or attached to their collar that will travel with them. As well as an example of rabies tags. These are outdated, so don't look closely, but it's what I could bring to show you a copy of example of one.
And I can say this from experience, periodically check the tags.
Yes.
We've got 2 golden retrievers. And the information does wear off.
Yeah, true.
And we had to, we called for the place where we get the microchip from, and Yeah, it's a few dollars to get a new one, but tag may be there, but it's useless if the information is not.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a county requirement to have that on. However, I'm gonna be honest with you and say that I just kept the chips in their folders, the tag, I mean, because if they get scanned, and I'm not suggesting anyone else do this, but if they get scanned, I'll always know where that tag is, and that microchip is in the animal itself. So that way I'm guaranteed to have those numbers. Microchip. You're going to want food and water for at least 3 days. However, some sites will go as far as 2 weeks. So I've provided an example packet for cat, 2 cans. This is per animal, dry, wet if they eat it. And this is especially important if your cats or dogs are on a medicated diet. So we're not going to be able to supply all of that special food. So bring your own, as well as a manual can opener. Now, a lot of them have the pop-off tops, but for some people, they have the traditional, or maybe say this morning I was giving my dogs pumpkin and I had to use one of these. So definitely supply that. You have no idea how helpful it'll be in the end. So this is the dog. We showed you the cat. This is an example of a 2-week supply for a medium to large dog. I've also put in 2 cans for the dogs. Medications. I like to have one of these pill things on hand, have at least enough for 2 weeks. You can easily, with a Sharpie, write on the back your pet's name, what the medication is, the dosage, and all that good stuff. Do they need to take it with a pill pocket? Maybe put some of those in there. And of course, with the food, I mean, the cans are going to be okay, unless you're expecting a 15-year sitting there. But definitely go through this and change it out. Don't think it's good forever. Comfort items. So for cats, if they have a special treat they like, and we're gonna go into that because, like Shay said, this is a completely new situation for them, and since we know what's going on, even though we're both uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable and they don't know what's going on, and we can't explain that to them. So I would say for cats, have like a special treat. If they like catnip, whatever helps them. For dogs, I like the longer lasting chews, so it keeps them busy while they're stuck in an unfamiliar environment, something that's more long lasting. I also provided in our kits, yes, so, and I'm not suggesting this brand name by any means, but there are travel calming sprays. This is for dogs and this one is for cats. These brands in particular, Adaptil and Feel-Away. Now, I know most people are familiar with the plug-in pheromones, but these are nice to spray on the carrier, the bed in the carrier, or should you be needing to stay somewhere long-term, maybe that blanket that they're sleeping on or bed. Going next is a favorite soft bed or blanket would be nice for them. For dogs in particular, I'm going to go into harnesses and collars. A lot of people just rely on collars for walking their dog. In a normal situation, if your dog is a good on-leash walker, I think that's a great idea. However, having a fitted harness is really important in times of crisis. And the reason being, as we said, they're going to be uncomfortable. They can easily back out of a collar. That can come right over their head. A freedom harness or something that won't constrict the trachea, which can be deadly and is very dangerous. We're learning a lot about collar and pulling and how dangerous that is for their necks. This is more stable. They won't be able to slip out of it as easily. And on top of that, having 2 leashes is going to be important in a time like this. So you can have a leash on the collar, a leash on the harness, and then I like to have this in a case of emergency. This is called a slip lead. Should you not have anything on hand, if having this, you'll have the collar and the leash on the same thing, and it's just another security backup measure. Now, don't rely on just this, obviously, but like I said, if your pet's running around and you know, it's going crazy and you can't catch it, this is also a nice way to just sort of slip over them. So that is that for the dogs. This is the leash, basic leash for the dog. And then for cats, do I have anything for them?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, well, I'll go into carriers. Make sure all your cats have their own carrier or small animal. Not only that, but make sure there's enough room for them to stand up and turn around in that carrier, and make sure it's functioning properly. I had someone once bring us a cat in a carrier that was held together with lollipops. So in a case of an emergency, this would not be good.
No.
It was creative and inventive, and I did appreciate that. 10 points for creativity, but sometimes work better. Yeah, exactly.
So I have carriers that kind of like get bigger. Are those, have you ever seen them to be like less reliable than just normal, like I guess hard carriers?
Yeah.
Which is preferred, soft or hard?
I think hard because in times of travel, for instance, they're more secure in there, and you can, in times of extreme emergencies, stack them. I think they're a little safer for animals, gives them a little more level of security, but it's really what is easiest for you in that time. Does your cat get in a soft carrier easily? Use that. Use whatever you can get that cat into at that time, but practicing and having that hard carrier, if you can, ahead of time would be preferable.
Hard carriers are also a lot easier to clean and disinfect.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hit it with that rescue.
So, like I said, having the proper fitting harnesses, collars, having an extra leash, and having that carrier function properly, and make sure you can get the cat in there. And you know, you can line it with a blanket and swear that, like I said, that feel away on the blanket prior should be good for a while. Going into that, pets at shelters are going to continue to make messes and have accidents or need to use the bathroom. These are really great for both cats and dogs. So I highly recommend, if you don't have them already, getting a couple of these on board. They're little poop bags, and I put them in the cats as well, because not only should you have an extra litter box, a litter scoop, a bag of litter, they're going to need a place to put that. So having one of these bags on hand is nice to scoop away the mess.
And a note on litter boxes. This works great if you have a cat that is smaller. So personally, we have two big boys at home. I've got a 16-pound tuxedo, and they're not like chunky, they're just big cats. And then I have another one that is about 21 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Just because they're just big. They're big boys. I pick them up and they stretch the entire length of my torso. They're great. I love them. Their aim is not great. Do your shelter staff a favor.
Well, and the reason I went with smaller too is, it fit in the box for one, but also those pop-up tents and shelter kennels, they're not going to be huge, especially for cats. So the smaller you can make them, and I do appreciate exactly what Shay is saying. I have some big boys at home as well. The more likely, less cleanup we'll have to do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have two cats. Would they be able to be housed together, or would they be in separate ones? So would I need like 2 litter boxes?
Yeah, I would pack per cat just in case. I don't have the answer definitively for you on that yet, but I would do an emergency kit per animal regardless. And you don't have to get, expensive items. You can even get those tins that you cook turkeys in, and have some of those on hand. I like to keep those on hand, just in case. And you can go to the dollar store if you want. You don't have to spend $1,000 on this.
Dollar Tree dish pans.
Yes.
Exactly. Next up, which seems very obvious, but in the time of crisis, you might not think of it, is bowls for food and water for animal. I like these because they have lids, and you can also easily portion one of them out as you go, to have one filled on hand already. But make sure they each, they pop out. Make sure they each have a bowl. And if you don't have this type, just sticking 2 metal bowls in there is fine as well. Lastly, some comfort items. So for dogs, I went ahead and packed a little to-go comfort kit. I have a soft toy. I like to bring a variety, but you know your pet's best. You know what they prefer. I like the nylalones because it gives them something to do while they're sitting there. And I put a little rope toy in here as well. And you can just stick those in Ziplocs and they'll be ready for them. In the cat carrier, we have some balls, a mouse, springs.
Love the springs.
They do love the springs and they're so
Sprinkle
inexpensive.
balls, all the toys.
Yeah, I like to get a variety going.
Or if they have a favorite stuffy.
Exactly, the
Some of
favorite.
them have the favorite stuffy.
And that's going to be something that that last minute thing that you grab might be that stuffy. But so they can still have it out. But if you have extras of items that they seem to prefer, go ahead and pack that up as well. All right. Any questions on the emergency? Well, we haven't gone through the second slide. We'll do that next.
Any questions so far?
Any questions so far?
What about bringing sheets to drape your carriers and kennels?
If you
for
have
stress
space,
reduction?
if you have space for it, that'd be great. I know we're gonna have items like that on hand, but maybe we don't have enough.
Right.
So if it is a situation where you're going to a shelter, it would be wise to have a sheet, like a extra top sheet on hand, that we can cover for their stress reduction. So we talked about the sanitation. The last thing you're going to want to have is a first aid kit for your pets. I went ahead and assembled some crucial items. Doesn't have to be elaborate, doesn't have to be a ton of stuff, and you should know how to use everything in your kit. So don't include things that, you're like, what do I do with this? I don't need that. Make space for the stuff you know you need. So in here, again, these are basic items. Gauze. And we're going to be showing you a little video next on how to properly apply gauze should the animal need an emergency wrap. What are they called? Tourniquet. More gauze. This is that medical vet tape that will keep the gauze in place. Saline wound wash. This is nice because you don't have to pour anything over. It's already sterile in the bottle. Gloves. That's really important in a time of crisis and dealing with a medical emergency, to making sure things are sterile. We also included some adhesive tape. The little hand cleansing towelettes. A lot more gauze. And after the course, feel free to come up and peruse through this. You can take pictures, whatever you need, whatever you would like. We also have the Insta Cold Pack. These are great to have on hand in there. Some Band-Aids and bandages. And lastly, we have, this is sterile lubrication and an old-fashioned thermometer. I don't know if any of you are familiar with taking an animal's temperature. Should you need to, for whatever reason, because this is good to know prior to sometimes even getting to the emergency vet clinic, or if you have someone on hand in the passenger seat that can do this on the way, so that they know ahead of time what they're getting into. But I should let you know, cats and dogs' temperatures are way different than ours. So if you see something really high on the cat thermometer, most likely it's okay. So cats range between 100.5 and 102.5 Fahrenheit. That's their normal temperature rates. Dogs are between 99.5 and 102.5. So just wanted to let you know that ahead of time, should you be wondering why my cat's temperature is so high if you had to do that.
And the last part, having a plan.
Right.
So there's some family communication plans over there, the little teeny cards that are really great to fill out. So like if you have different emergency contacts, having all of that good to go. But just having a plan for your family. Where would you go? If you had to leave your home and you had 15, 30 minutes to do it, where are you going to go? Are you going to go? Yes, you would be coming to my house. Are you going to go to a friend's, to a relative's? Are you going to go to a hotel? What hotels in the area are pet friendly? Because hotels, unlike emergency shelters, they can decide whether or not they want pets on the property. Having that, once again, in mind, well ahead of time, maybe having like a note sheet of like, okay, I know this hotel in Annapolis, and I know this hotel maybe in the DC area, or maybe I'm going to be visiting relatives and here's some stuff that's around them. Just having that done in advance is also going to help you in that moment, so you're not making a bunch of different phone calls and trying to Google on your phone, like, where can I go? And I'm already having to go out the door. So there's some resources over there. There's an Are You Ready book that's from FEMA, and that has a really good kind of template in which you can think through like what you need that is specific to your family and your needs.
Prior to the event, I did some research into the pet-friendly hotels. Should this be a local emergency where you're not having to leave the Queen Anne's County or Talbot County area? Oh my gosh, there's so many hotels. So you won't, I think if you did a little research, you'd find ahead of time that there are plenty of places over here. I was shocked actually by how many hotels nearby took animals in. But again, having those records.
All sizes?
Yeah, because a lot of them only take 20 pounds and under.
It depends on the situation.
And yes,
Yeah.
the situation.
So in some crisis situations, the hotels will make announcements of we are accepting pets regardless of, you just have to bring that documentation with you. It really depends on what that hotel or that franchise of hotels is deciding. So there are some that say we're going to continue to stay with no pet, or we're going to continue to follow our pet policy as written, but you would also see in some circumstances, so like if there's a large hurricane coming and there was a large influx of people that were needing to seek additional shelter and there was a need for hotels, you're going to see some possible announcements from that, or you can give them a call and say, hey, are you still honoring your pet policy, or has there been a change in light of the situation?
Right. So the only reason I didn't include this is we are a county agency and I didn't want to promote any businesses over each other, but it should be easy enough to Google.
I will, because several years ago, there was a compulsory evacuation from Queen Anne's County. And I had all my pets in the car and in the car in 10 minutes. But what I did, I called a friend in Oregon to let her know I was evacuating. And she called a Comfort Inn in Gettysburg. I drove up and somebody met me at the door to carry my cats in.
Oh,
And my dog.
I love it too.
So, and they said that nationally, Comfort Inn takes animals.
Yeah,
So they must have been used to doing that because they met me at the door.
right. That's awesome.
Sorry, since I came in late, I don't know if you addressed this, but several years ago, the animals, they had set up through, I guess through you, because I can't see that well, who's who.
Animal services,
I'm glad I
emergency
said that.
services.
Oh, okay, I was gonna go the opposite, but anyway. That they were gonna allow one of the buildings up beyond Centerville Elementary School to take dogs or to take pets, because at the time, there was no place. And I don't know if this was after Katrina, or if it was when we had Irene here.
So Irene would have been,
Isabel, one of them.
Isabel came before Katrina, so I'm not sure what that
No,
looks
Isabel
like
was
here.
after. Katrina was in 2005.
Yes,
Wasn't Isabel after?
I think Isabel's 2003.
I've got PTSD over Isabel. No, I remember that too. But no, at the time, because there weren't places that would take animals. That
Yes.
wasn't a thing. We didn't have a place then. Is that still how that would work?
So
Because
following
county
Hurricane
buildings-
Katrina, there was legislation where now shelters have to accept pets.
Okay.
What it looks like is going to be different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So here in Queen Anne's County, Our designated shelter location currently is Centerville Middle School. So there's a place where people would go, but in the same building, there's a place where pets would go as well.
Okay.
So you can bring your pets. Please bring your documentation with you for your pets.
Question, what, is it just Centerville Elementary School, as big as the county is now?
That is the
You wouldn't do it
pre-designated.
down here?
We would work with our county to see
Yeah.
like what kind of other options we would have based on the sheltering needs. However, if we're looking at a flooding event, it may not be in our best interest to have a shelter here.
No, I
because of the
understand
flooding.
that, and I think that's back with, I'm sorry, was it Isabel? I forget which one it was, that they were doing the evacuation on the island, but it wasn't, anyway, whatever.
Well, yeah, and
That's been a long time
we
ago.
briefly touched on this, but we are actually in the midst of doing huge practice runs for such an event right now. And just to make sure that we have everything and that we are prepared ahead of time. So these drills will be starting in a couple months, actually. And just give you this, because this has our brochure.
Dude,
Yeah.
the document, just the discussion about Isabel, we took in a neighbor's dog, because they left it, and we stayed, we were told to leave, but one of the reasons we stayed was because we didn't know what to do with all of this, and so I had no paperwork on this dog. What do you do if you don't have the paperwork? Like,
If you can take pictures of that dog, if there is a way that you are able to note where the dog is from, so even just writing down the address,
Yeah.
like this dog belongs to this address, if you have the contact information for that individual, that would be a great way. But yes, there are times where people abandon their pets to evacuate, and it's awful to think about because, of course, we're like, I'm going to load my pets before I load my husband. He's going to be in the back, the cat's going to be fried shotgun. So being able to just know that in advance and know your neighbors,
Yeah.
especially like in our world now, I don't know all of my neighbors. I know some of them. I see them in passing every once in a while. But knowing who your neighbors are, knowing the pets of the neighbors. When I grew up, I knew the pets better than I knew the people. So just having that knowledge ahead of time. But yeah, if you're in that kind of situation, or if you found an animal and you're taking it in, you might want to keep it away from your pets just for the sake of safety and quarantine, because you don't have those records with you. But being able to document where you found that pet.
Right, and then should you have maybe an elderly neighbor or someone with special needs, checking in on them and with pets, making sure they have a plan, and that if you need to be a part of that, that you are and can help them in any way get ready for something.
I advocate being incredibly proactive with that. I will reach out to widows in my, that have pets and say, I would love to be your emergency contact whenever you've got to get up and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so share this information. Don't just take it home and sit it somewhere. Make sure everyone around you is aware as well. So this is the video I was telling you about on proper bandaging. That was really the only thing in the kit that I would have had questions on. And if you have further questions on how to use any of these, let me know. But this is super important because a lot of people don't know where to start with bandaging, and should your pet need to be on the way to an emergency care but need to be bandaged on the way. This is good to know.
Hi, my name's Belinda. I'm one of the education officers here, and I've also been a vet nurse for a number of years. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how to apply a pressure bandage or compression bandage to a stuffed animal, which you might need to do in an emergency situation to stop blood from a wound, etc. It's important to remember that we would never practice on a live animal, but you may have materials at home that you can practice on your soft toys, and a teddy bear works just as well. There's a number of layers involved, and I'll tell you what each layer is doing as I pop it on. So if we look at the first layer, it's a non-adherent or non-stick dressing, has a shiny side and a soft side. And so we pop the shiny side onto the side of the wound so that it doesn't stick. The next layer we put on is an absorbance layer. So it's actually just absorbing any liquid, like blood, that's coming from the wound. A really good way to roll bandages is to have what we call the barrel up, so that when you're putting it on, it's easier to control the tension. This one doesn't need to be very tight. So we secure the dressing in place, we roll it around, we always make sure that we include the paw, and we roll it around to make sure that that dressing is completely covered. We go 50% over each of the last roll around to make sure that it's well covered and the pressure is nice and even. So once we've finished, we can see that the dressing's covered by the absorbency layer. The next layer is actually the compression layer. So this is a conforming gauze. It's a bit stretchy, puts pressure on the wound to stop that bleeding. So we're going to start it at the paw and make sure that the paw is evenly covered. Sometimes that's a bit tricky and a lot of practice is involved. You need to fold the bandage and make sure that there's no big lumps and bumps that can be uncomfortable for the animal. Once we've got an even coverage of the paw, again with the barrel up so that we can control the tension, we open that weave, make sure there's a little bit of pressure on there, and we cover completely that underlying layer. And then we have what we call a cohesive bandage rather than an adhesive bandage. Sticks to itself, but not actually to the dog's hair. We open it up so that we don't have to pull really hard around the dog's limb. And again, we want the barrel up, but I always start with the barrel down so that I can fold it neatly in a part where over the top of the paw where the animal's not going to put pressure on it by standing, and then bring it around. Each layer or each wraparound covers 50% of the layer before. If we do have to pull too tight, you can end up constricting the limb too much and the circulation will stop. So once we get there and we can see that all of the underlying layers are covered, we can cut off that bandage. We do need to check that it's not too tight, and if we can slip our fingers underneath and feel some pressure but it's not gripping on them too tight, then that'll be okay to stay on until you get to a vet.
So she's practicing with a stuffed dog, always easier than the real thing. So I do suggest practicing on a stuffed animal first if you have the chance to. But basically what she's doing is covering the wound first, and then she's getting her gauze out.
Your dog's gonna walk.
And you might not have gauze on you at this point. A t-shirt, any material at this point to stop the bleeding is so important. So whatever you have on hand, should you not be walking in there as an emergency and you don't have your medical kit on you.
Too tight.
Not too tight, thank you. You're gonna wanna overlap it and move towards the heart. So start lower and go upward. And should that one little piece of gauze bleed through, that's okay, leave it there, do not take it up. The people want to look so much. Is it stopped yet? Don't do that. Just keep putting bandages on it. If it bleeds through that one, that's okay, put another one on. Whatever you need to do or whatever you have on hand, like I said, to stop that bleeding is really important. And then that's the vet gauze. Mine's pink though, so.
That's just great to have in general.
It is,
It's
it
amazing.
really is.
How do you know if like you're doing it too tight because you don't want to cut off?
So a good way to view that is through their paws. If their toes are pushed together, that's too tight. So they're gonna wanna be comfortably the way they would naturally be out, is one good way.
Another good way is to feel the temperature. So if it feels colder, you're not having that blood circulate through. And so we also do something very similar to this with humans. So if I'm wrapping someone's arm for a wound, I'm gonna check to make sure that I'm not wrapping it too tight by looking at their circulation. So if everybody holds up their hand and you just pinch like your nail bed or like the far part of your finger, you'll notice that there's a very brief color change and the color comes immediately right back. So that you're pinching off your capillaries, the smallest blood vessel, and you're watching that blood flow return. So that's something that we would look for in a human, but if I cut off that blood flow, I'm gonna be able to feel that temperature change pretty quickly in that animal.
Yeah, so that's a good one. And then, go ahead.
When you're using the vet wrap, instead of wrapping while you're unrolling it from the roll, you pull it off and get it
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to point that.
first,
Yes,
because it is so easy to over tighten it while you're doing both at the same
that's
time.
smart, yes. That's something that they recommend and I forgot to bring it up. So unroll it first.
Yep.
Because like Kim said, if you start with that and just bandage around, that's a good way to get it too tight, so. These are some helpful websites. It is included in your packet as well. to take a look at these. Of course, FEMA as well, they have a lot of good stuff, but know that it's your responsibility. Your pets are your responsibility. Don't rely on anyone else in emergency settings. I know we all think everyone's going to be a hero and rescue us, but there are times where they can't. So make sure that you are proactive, make sure you've got this ahead of time, set up and ready to go, and you can leave safely with them.
And you also know your pet's best. Just like you know your family best, you know your pet's best. And so if you know that your animal is stressed with confinement, so putting your cat into a carrier, not a fun time, and then instead of being the sweet, cuddly kitten they normally tend to be, instead we've got claws out and we might try to, attack somebody, know that ahead of time. So that if you get into a situation where there is a period of time in which you're separated, you're able to say to that individual, hey, Sarah, usually Maverick's really, really sweet, but confinement, he might hiss at you and there might be some growling. He also really doesn't like dogs. So just heads up there.
Right, and if you also, again, know about your pets, perhaps talking to your veterinarian about some anxiety medications ahead of time. There's a lot of good ones out there, as long as they're monitored under your vet and you and your pet are comfortable with that. Might be something to think about. All right, well, thank you again, everyone, for attending. Appreciate you so much.